All right. I just started the recording. All right. So this is Shower Thoughts with an Asexual. I think this is episode 7. I'm pretty sure. I should have wrote that down. Let me check really quick just so I can do this properly. Okay, yeah. This is episode 7. And we are with my friend Adrian. Adrian, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adrian Ghainda.
Anything else you want to say about yourself before we continue?
Sure. I'm a MPA student at NYU's Wagner School for Public Service. I'm 23 years old. I'm a lifelong resident in Jersey City, and I'm going to be talking about my involvement in Jersey City politics.
All right. As Adrian said, let's just get straight into it. Adrian actually earlier this year was a part of a special election in which district in Jersey again? I can't remember specifically.
So the specifications were that I ran in the New Jersey State primary. I ran for a small position called County Committee, and the district was B9, which is my neighborhood and 3 to 4 other blocks in the area.
Okay, so before we get directly into the special election, I wanted to talk more so about your personal politics and your personal beliefs, because obviously you're getting your master's in public policy, so you obviously have some sort of personal politics that you might want to talk about. You want to elaborate on them, I guess?
Sure. So in the conventional sense, I guess one could label me as a Democrat, but in terms of my personal politics, I'd label myself as a progressive in terms of specific issues that I work with and my attitude towards them. So for example, one of the major, I guess, local issues that I worked on was affordable housing in Jersey City. And the progressive way of looking at it would be everyone deserves to live in the city that they grew up in. Everyone deserves that opportunity to not be priced out. And to ensure that happens, you have to work on policy to ensure that people can afford living in a city where rents keep skyrocketing. And there should be some sort of intervention to ensure that these matters are not only heard, not only addressed, but they're practical. Or when people were protesting last year, specifically in Jersey City to defund the police, it was polarized because the administration took it to the extent of saying, no, people want less uniformed police officers, which they did to an extent, but they wanted to allocate that money to direct communities, whether it was to fund our schools or fund specific programs to ensure anti-violence measures, or to ensure that this money is going into specific programs like recreation, which was a budget that got completely slashed. They lost almost half their funding.
The police or
no, recreation.
The recreation. Just making sure.
Whereas the police, their budget increased from 97 million to just under 200 million, or a little over 200 million. I think the exact specs were about 220 million.
Jesus, that's a much larger conversation that I feel like is definitely being side gated, not only with the infrastructure bill but with voting rights and everything. So
absolutely,
it's definitely just getting out of this schedule. What do you think more so about the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? I want to focus on that more specifically, since you said you identify more as a progressive.
I'd say people could either be skewed by what it means to be a progressive, or they just label themselves as a progressive to say, hey, I could identify more with the voting bloc of our age demographic, which is people between the ages of about 18 to 24, 18 to 25, because they're becoming a larger voting bloc, and a lot of politicians are starting to notice that this age group is actually doing their research, and they're not just blindly voting in, hyper local elections or hyper state elections, because people are starting to realize that politics goes beyond national elections.
Definitely, 100%. I do want to focus more so on a national level, just because I do want to talk about the infrastructure bill, because I've been asking a bunch of my friends, what do they think about the progressives holding out? Well, like not only my friends, but like mentors as well, who are like older and more conservative establishment Democrat types, what they think about the progressives quite literally saying, we will sink both bills if you don't pass the infrastructure bill as it stands. What do you think the progressives should do in that case? Before I give my opinion, I want to hear yours.
Sure. So, my rationale is that it's it depends on the bills that they're going to sink whole. For me personally, I think it's a good tactic. I think it's something that really puts them on the offensive. I just feel like progressives at the national level often are scrutinized because people feel like they're not doing what they're saying that they're supposed to be doing, or what people believe they should be doing.
Yeah, I can see that.
It gives them that opportunity to really say, well, now that our boots are on the ground, to actually be within striking distance for an actual bill that not just progressives want to see, but a greater population wants to see.
I think it's like 73% of America agrees with the progressive or agrees with the reconciliation package, including Republicans. I don't know.
Something along those lines, right? And it really shows that, like, okay, now that we've actually voted in progressives that say that they're going to fight for X, Y, and Z, and actually say that, okay, now we can actually do some damage and hold people's like feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? And just me personally, I think definitely that progressives need to start playing more hardball because they have that larger voting block, and they need to start playing politics. I understand the focus on governance, but I really do think that it is a circular firing squad when you have conservative Democrats and people who call themselves Democrats, like Manchin and Sinema, who are really just Republican lights, who are saying, oh, progressives aren't doing anything to help, when all of their policies are very helpful and much more popular than the conservative Democrats. So let me not get on that particular tirade, because that is a very long tirade that I could go on and we could be here for hours, plural. But sorry, I lost exactly what I was about to say, but I know it came back to, I think progressives should definitely be playing more hardball. What do you think? There it is. I got it back. What do you think about Sinema and Manchin and other conservative Democrats who are threatening to, not only with the infrastructure bill, but with other pressing legislation like the For the People Act, and I can't remember all of them, but I know that infrastructure, the For the People Act, and a bunch of other hot button issues in America right now. What do you think about Manchin's take on it, and the whole the filibuster? That's the third thing that I was thinking of, and the idea to either change or abolish the filibuster. What do you think about Manchin and Sinema? You can choose whichever order you go into.
I'd say the approaches are just the best way to really exemplify what's wrong with like our party structure. That we allow people to place labels on themselves and say, oh, yeah, I'm a Democrat, but what kind of Democrat am I? I go into like these spaces and I occupy it in such a way that if I don't get my way, that I'll nix whatever comes, regardless of who it benefits, who it hurts, the people that actually voted me into this position to take these stands and to actually advocate for issues that they believe in. And now you're going into these spaces and occupying for your own agenda. That always sits wrong with me.
I mean, so is the way of politics, but
yeah,
I remember like I think it was either 1 or 2 news cycles, the people in he's Manchin is a senator in West Virginia, right? Or is it just Virginia? West Virginia? I don't know. I can't remember specifically where he is because I haven't done research on this particular news cycle, but I remember people were talking about recalling him or something. They were real, like people back in his own state were really mad about that, but that didn't get a lot of media coverage. Sorry, we've officially wasted 10 minutes talking about something that was not planned, but sorry, let's go back to you and your professional action when it comes to politics. Like, have you been on any campaigns? Have you been volunteering places? Like what?
Sure. So I could talk about my professional experience. Currently, I am a policy writer and researcher for a city council candidate in Jersey City in Ward D, the Heights. Her name's Danielle Freire. I'm also a campaign organizer for another city council election in Jersey City. It's a citywide election for a seat called Jersey City Councilman at Large. The candidate is Rolando Lavaro. I've worked in his office for over a year now. My other jobs are that I'm a political strategist with a company based in Denver. They're a political VIP, and essentially my job there is when candidates are looking for services for their campaigns, and my services could range from policy writing and research. It could range from voter outreach, creating plans for that, creating plans for canvassing, sending up electronic petitions, something that just emerged within the confines of working on an election cycle in COVID. So I'd say I've been working with campaigns for the better of 3 years now, whether it's been in a volunteer capacity, whether it's been as an intern, whether it's been canvassing or any of the sorts. And then politically, I've aligned myself with key organizations in New Jersey, such as the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County and the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Let's get more, because I feel like the special election really pulls into like your professional action as well. Let's get more specific into the special election of earlier this year. So first, I wanted to know what were the results? Well, for the podcast, I already know the results because we've talked about this before.
So in that election, there were 67 total votes casted. I had earned 23 of those votes, and the opponent that I was directly facing earned, I believe, 34.
Okay, so it wasn't that far off. I thought you lost by like a larger margin. I don't know if I specifically asked you the last time we talked, but only 67 votes in total.
Only 67 in total.
Jesus, that's not really big, but you know, state elections and local elections aren't really big main politics. What was your reason for doing it, I guess?
So the reason for doing it was quite simple for, I guess, most people that actually do get into the political arena. I saw that there was a position that I had never heard about until earlier this year. Went to a couple of informational sessions by these organizations that were looking for people to run. I saw that it was a very, very local election, that it was only as small as 3 blocks. And I told myself this was doable, that I can put myself out there, because I felt who better to represent my neighborhood than someone that's lived here for 17 years, that grew up here and went to school in the city, that went to school literally 2 blocks away, studied political science, works in the arena, knows neighborhood issues like the back of his hand. And that's what I built my platform around, just going around talking to neighbors, asking them about issues that resonated with them, and did my best to be that avenue to try and get them associated with whether it's the city or county level of measures that they needed to go through.
Okay, that sounds like a more of a jumping off point. So I guess, what were your political goals going into that election? Like, beyond, obviously you wanted to win or else you wouldn't have ran, but what were your political goals beyond that? And I guess we can segue into what are your political goals in general.
Let's see. My political goals beyond that was to keep building in these organizations that I joined. Like I said, I became a member of the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County and a member of Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. And the goals that I had outlined there, they resonate in my political goals, which is to keep making noise against the establishment, because Jersey City and Hudson County in general have one of the biggest political machines, I guess, within the entirety of the United States. And we're deemed as a progressive city or as a
Really?
progressive county. And it's, for lack of a better term, it's pretty much it's inaccessible for outsiders. It's inaccessible for people like me that see that there needs to be immediate change in these structures, because they only benefit those that decide to sell their soul, for lack of a better phrase, and decide, if I do the bidding of these people that are in charge of this machine, I have job security, or I have some sort of financial like restitution where I could lean on this and say, okay, they're doing good by me. This is worth me being their lackey in this organization and taking up a vote to go against whatever policies may come up. For example, I think within the structure, they could address the ICE contract in New Jersey and in Hudson County.
What's the ICE
And
contract?
so there are contracts to keep ICE to keep detained individuals that ICE agents have gone around and imprisoned, and keep them in these prisons. And a lot of activists have come out against it, whether it was through virtual organizing or in-person organizing. And they fought tooth and nail for it to ensure that not only were these detainees released, but also that they don't continue this contract, because I want to say it was last year they extended this contract for 10 years.
Jesus.
And it came with a lot of flack from the county. It came with a lot of flack within all our cities. During the height of COVID, there were virtual meetings that went on for hours where we spoke at commissioner meetings to our county representatives and demanded that they vote against this contract, or demanded that they repealed this contract, to no avail, of course, which is what led to all the organizing in the first place. So being able to be at the basic level of those structures and trying to like eat away at those machine votes to not speak on those issues was essentially something that I saw myself doing, whether I won or not, because I'd still be outspoken on these issues regardless.
Of course. And I wanted to know, just like with the ICE contract, what other Hudson County policies did you talk to locals about? And what were their concerns, I guess? Just so we can get a better idea of like the area that you live in and what you were running on.
Sure. So in Hudson County, it's a relatively urban area. So one of the big issues is sustainability, because this area is definitely not environmentally conscious. There's not enough green space to really accommodate the rapid urbanization. And when I say rapid, I mean, I'm 23 years old and I've seen the urbanization like hit us like a bus. That's how fast it's been. Like I can tell you, like 10 years ago, there were not as many buildings as there are. And the lack of conscious sustainability in regards to creating more green spaces has definitely been lacking. So for context for that, where the county comes into play there is that there's one park that they're in charge of, and even that one park is starting to urbanize. They had this one venue that was called Casino in the Park, and it was a relatively old structure, and even there they're gentrifying it and putting a nice, I guess a nicer, slicker looking building. And all that does is just invites more developers to truly say, okay, they have this nice structure here. Now they need nice buildings to accommodate that area, to make it really palatable for people to want to move in here and pay exorbitant amounts of money for rent in an area that's already cost burden to the people that live there.
Did you have, when it came to your I guess your political message, did you have a way that you wanted to, I guess, I'm trying to phrase this the right way, bring more jobs into the area, or was that more of a out of your control scenario?
Oh, that's definitely out of my control. But my approach to that was that just trying to hold people accountable that do have that jurisdiction, say, give these jobs to Jersey City people or Hudson County people instead of outsourcing.
Mm. Okay. Okay. I have a better idea. I definitely have a better idea of what you were running for now, because I remember when we were originally talking about this, I was not too sure on what you were talking about. I'm like, what? I forgot what the name of the position you were running for again. I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
County committee person.
County committee person. Okay. I don't. We probably have something like that similar in Detroit, but I don't know. But I know for a fact that I definitely, over this last like grip of time, since the beginning of the year, honestly, and right after COVID kind of hit, I've been trying to get more into state politics. But like, I let's put it this way: what's the importance of focusing, in your opinion? What's the importance of focusing on state politics and local politics rather than national politics? Because obviously I am much more nationally focused. I'm going to be going into intelligence soon, and that's going to be where my focus is in when I start my own political career. But I do want to know, like, what do you think the importance is? Because I definitely have been trying to get more into state politics over national politics.
So for me, the importance is that for me, the city I grew up in, the neighborhoods that I've walked with my 2 feet, and I've seen the changes happen like firsthand. And I've never really known how some of these policies truly pass, or how some of these issues can go unacknowledged. And if you don't know at a local level, it becomes harder and harder to truly, I guess, stay vigilant on these issues. I'd say what detracted me from national politics is how small some of these national issues can truly make you feel. That you're just an ant, like compared to all these political cogs that work in these areas. You know, like for example, one of the biggest tools that we've all like worked with would be email campaigns and like petitions and signing those things. And signing a national level petition, you really start to question who's reading it, who's looking at it.
Efficacy, yeah.
Yeah, like is the actual senator or the congressperson, do they ever look at it, or do they just have an intern tell them, well, we got this many number of people that signed today, and then to what point are they just like, well, stop monitoring it, it's become too many people, or yeah, it's an issue that just will continue to exist. Because when you start tackling these things at a local and state level, you're more likely to at least get meaningful interaction with your representatives to see, okay, which one actually cares and which one is just doing it for optics, or which one is just here to occupy space on behalf of someone else
Mhm.
or other interest groups. It gets harder and harder once you climb up that ladder to truly see who's just reading off talking points or who genuinely cares and at least has some sort of merit as to why they occupy their space.
I understand that. And I think that's actually a good segue to talk about our last point. What is going on in Jersey? I wanted to know, what are Jersey politics, big problems that you wanted to talk about? Because Jersey isn't like geographically a large state, but numbers wise, what is it? I don't know, like 4 or 5 million people, or is it bigger than that? Because I know
I
they
would
play into
say
the New York economy, but I could be wildly off. Don't quote me on those numbers.
I would say probably closer to 8 million.
Jesus.
I'd have to look at the census data because that comes out at the end of the month for us, but
Mhm.
the most accurate data. But I could tell you at least in Jersey City and Newark, which are the two largest cities, their populations grew a little over 50,000 each. Jersey City was a little under 250,000 in our population. And now
Almost
we're closer
9
to,
million, almost 9 million population. So it's definitely not a small
yeah,
state.
it's not small. We're very dense.
And how, like, what are the big issues in that particular state, and how does that play into the? I know we don't want to talk about national politics, but how does that play into national politics? So you can start off small and then go big at the towards the end of this.
Yeah. So we can start with issues in Jersey City and something that, like I said, I work closely with.
Mhm.
Affordable housing. Um, an issue that came up relatively recently was Hurricane Ida and the relief there, and having to acknowledge that in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, we're still not equipped to handle tropical storms, or we're not equipped to really relegate how we help our community and give them resources. Other issues have to pertain to COVID, and the distribution of vaccines was relatively slow at first and controversial.
Mhm.
Uh, Getting relief to people in terms of federal programs like the rental assistance, that became a very not controversial, yes, but it became highlighted through an article by the Huffington Post literally last week, where they shed light on how there were 1,100 applicants for federal assistance that Jersey City received, and 800 of those applications were nixed and denied straight up.
Did they give a reason?
Their rationale was that they wanted to help individuals that directly need this money because they're living in the buildings that they own, so it would directly affect them.
Of
But
course.
of those 1,100 applications, right? And I said 800 were denied, so that means there were 300 that were still left, that they decided, okay, we can start divvying out the money here. I think about 45 of them met that demographic that they claimed they were trying to help. So that money, I would say, was a little under $500,000. It's questionable where, like, whose hands it's in, because there's just so many anomalies in play that
Very little transparency.
a lack of transparency has been a primary platform for a lot of independent candidates, because no one, like I said, no one truly knows how any of these issues are going unacknowledged.
It's ridiculous. But sorry, I don't mean to feel all over the place, but when it comes to COVID, I do want to talk about that just a little bit, because you did bring it up and it was on the talking block anyway. How has COVID been handled in Jersey in comparison to other states? Not the red states. We know it's going bad there because like they deny COVID all the time. But how's COVID going now?
I
Better
would
question.
say that it's not as well as I hope.
Mm-hmm.
For starters, the way they decided to push children to go back to school and not give them the chance to have some sort of either virtual learning or a hybrid where you go to school at least maybe half the week and then you're in Zoom classes for the other half of the week. I feel as though it was rushed in terms of making sure these schools were in capacity to accommodate it. I was in the public school system for the better of 15 years, and I could say that there's no way those summer months were enough to clean these buildings or to make them reasonable for these children to go to school. Because even after the first week or two, there were COVID cases, and I've heard that friends of family, they're like some children are not feeling great. Some of them are already like in the hospital because they're the most afflicted population. Any child under the age of 12 just can't get a vaccine because it's not like medically safe for them to do so yet. And
have there been mandates enforced?
There are mask mandates, but how do you mandate a child to keep a mask on all day? Like, how do you enforce that, you know? And I'm not sure they have social distancing in like keeping desks 6 feet apart. I'm not sure if they have any like barriers at individual desks. I know that in cafeterias when it's lunchtime, there's definitely like no social distancing there. And there's just should be an alternative to these things, and I feel like they never thought it through.
Yeah, because I feel like sorry, no, continue.
And even at the collegiate level, they are rushing for students to be on campus or in person. And me personally, as much as I don't like virtual learning, I made sure that all my classes were virtual because the Delta variant's a concern. Just the commute back and forth from New York to Jersey City. My parents aren't, spring chickens anymore. They're getting older. They have their own health issues that I can't put them at risk because I had the opportunity to go back in person and I was vying for it. As much as I want to be able to go back on campus, I know that the safety of others comes first.
And how has the parent response been to mask mandates?
I'd say parents are conflicted, and they're conflicted because they know that it may not necessarily be their child, but it could be individuals that they interact with. It doesn't have to be other children. It could just be literally anyone. It could be teachers, security guards, crossing guards, anyone that they interact with that could potentially get them sick. And they're concerned about that. Their concerns are like, it's so densely populated, these schools. Hundreds of kids there, and then they have to interact with others when school leaves. Because how do you truly mandate that a child goes to school and then leaves and doesn't like interact with anyone else? Like they're going to be they're going to be excitable, and they're going to want to be able to interact as normally as they can. That's something that you can't be like, okay, I have to follow these children like and be able to say, no, you can't take your mask off, no, you can't like lower it or anything. It's virtually impossible.
Have they been pushing back on mask mandates, or have they been really like in support of them? And what about vaccine mandates as well? Mask mandates first.
Yeah, they've been supportive of mask mandates because it's the only way they could truly like make sure that their kid is safe.
Mm-hmm. And what about vaccine mandates for like teachers and other faculty members? Are those enforced yet or no?
I don't believe they are. I think so. I know at least in City Hall that you have the option to either be vaccinated or to get tested weekly.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, no, they don't. We want to emulate that because that's what New York is doing, right? But it's something that they haven't done, and some of us have personally like taken that precaution. So for me personally, I've been vaccinated since April, and every now and again, if I do have to leave my house often, I'll make sure I get tested, and I'll go to a rapid testing site. And
Mm-hmm.
but I can't say that others are definitely in that mindset. I'd say as soon as they saw the opportunity that things were getting quote unquote normal, that the
They
most that
really
they'll
laxed
do,
out. They really
the
laxed
most
out.
they'll, yeah, the most they'll do is just keep a mask with them.
Mm-hmm. Because I've been vaccinated since about May. I wanted to give like a little bit of time because like it was a little quick for me personally.
Yeah.
But as I actually, because you know how people say, oh, I did my research. It's like, no, I was like literally listening to the CDC and like listening to other not conflicting, but other medical institutions around the world, like listening to what they said. Because like I'm not gonna do like in-depth hours long research on something that ultimately I'm not trained for or trained to understand at a level that would actually say I have like a fundamental understanding of this. But I've been fully vaccinated since May, and I don't get rapid tested every time I go out for work, but I like once I leave the house, I have a new N95 mask every single day. So I keep my mask with me, but like I keep my mask on. So I feel that I am better insulated against the vaccine just because not only do I have the vaccine, not only is my mother, she's vaccinated, so I don't really have to worry about that, even though she is herself, I think like 64 or 65. So she's on the older, but she doesn't have any like health issues. But I can definitely understand someone who's in that situation where either they're in your situation where your parents aren't like, I don't know if they have health, I don't know if they're health concerns because I'm not going to ask, that's rude. But they have other health concerns that are beyond old age or kids who literally can't get the vaccine. I just feel like, me personally, speaking from a personal perspective, I would enforce vaccines. I would enforce vaccine mandates for anyone over the age of 12. Just, I know that's more authoritarian and like Republicans are going to say my freedoms, but literally for getting into school, for getting into certain positions, you have to get vaccinated. This is no different. You're just making this a political issue because you don't want to conform to the Democrat way of life, I guess. I don't know how to phrase that any other way, to be perfectly honest. Oh, that's my dog. But all right. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Because I'm out of topics. We've run through my entire list of what I was talking about, so I don't really have anything else that I specifically wanted to talk about.
I'd say I guess my final thoughts would be that I too emulate that idea that there should be vaccine mandates, only because I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone had to go through this, but I don't know if you remember the vaccination cards that they made you have like in elementary school and middle school and high school, where you had to get certain vaccines and you had to show proof of it. I mean, I see it as no different than that.
Literally.
And it's, for me personally, I don't like getting shots because I'm kind of afraid of needles. But if someone's able to put that fear aside because they want to make sure not only they're safe, but others are safe, it's something that people should be more amicable to. You know, at the end of the day, we should be aiming to
protect everyone and not
Yeah,
just care
protect
about
everyone.
personal fucking freedoms. Like I hate that so much. Every time that I talk to and it's not only Republicans who have vaccine hesitancy, but every time that I talk to someone and they say, well, we haven't done enough research, we haven't done enough this, we haven't done enough that, it's like, what do you haven't done enough research? What do you mean? Like, are you actively doing research on this topic, or are you just saying, I don't trust it because I heard some bad faith actor say this, that, and the third thing? That's always the question that I come around asking, because you got to start questioning people like, how much research have you done? And
Yep.
every time I ask them, they're like, oh, well, I've been listening to the news, I've been listening to Fox, I've been listening to CNN, I've been listening to this. And it's like, okay, beyond mainstream media, because at the end of the day, like CNN, MSNBC, and more left-leaning sources have been giving data and sharing expert data on this. So there is a lot of research, but beyond mainstream media, what research have you been doing? That's like the question that you always ask them, and they never have an answer. And it's like, are you doing research or are you just being stupid? Like, I'm an asshole, so like that's always my question. Are you doing research or being stupid? One of the two. Come on. It's a much more complex conversation. I'll put it that way. Definitely. And I definitely think that that's something, if you wanted to, we could talk about that at a later date.
Yeah.
Later on. But for now, I think that we got a pretty good look as to what Jersey politics look like from a like layman's term. Obviously, we'd have to do more research as it evolves. But when it comes to a national level, this is like the final topic. What do you think needs to be done when it comes to the filibuster? Honest opinion, hot take.
To be perfectly candid, I don't necessarily pay that much attention to national politics anymore. So I'm kind of indifferent about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the best approach is just playing hardball for the sake of
playing hardball.
For exposing which representative has which stance, and to ensure that when it's time to vote, you're as educated as you can possibly be on who these people truly are.
Okay. That's a very, for someone who doesn't pay attention to national politics, that's a very good take. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. That's all that I had for today. We're gonna talk after this anyway. But for now, this has been Shower Thoughts with an Asexual. This has been Adrian. Do you have any organizations you want to plug? Any socials we can see you at? Anything you got going on in the works, or anything in the future that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, of course. So my socials are on Instagram. It's my first and last name. It's Adrian Ghainda, ADrianGhainda. My Twitter is Ghainda, and things that I've been working on and are in the works is that I got an op-ed published, and I'm in the process of getting a second one published.
Shit.
In the works of writing that right now. Other things to look out for would be how the election season turns out.
Yeah.
And
2022 is coming up. Any predictions?
Not at the moment, because I was actually talking about local elections, because our elections are in November 2021.
Oh,
so
shit.
that's the primary basis of my work. And yeah, just if you're interested, just follow any of my socials. I post literally all that I work on there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
All right. This has been Shower Thoughts with an Asexual, and we're going to cut it here. I'll see you guys next time. Where's this? There it is.